Hello, everyone. I'm Minnie Bishop, Florida State Level Justice Reform Coordinator. I'd like to welcome you to the information session for the Florida Race Equity Challenge. We're so grateful for your interest in this work and excited to share this first step with you. The purpose of this webinar is to provide a more detailed overview of the challenge elements so you'll be aware of how it works before it begins. Before I begin sharing the challenge details, I'd like to orient you to the platform in which we are operating. As you may have heard the system announce, this webinar is being recorded so that those that did not have an opportunity to join us live may benefit from the information shared here. All participants are muted to allow for the best sound quality for everyone. This webinar is live, which means that you can ask questions to be answered along the way. You'll do that by entering your question into your question/chat box, which should be towards the bottom of your control panel. If you can't see the question/chat box, you should see an orange arrow. If you click the orange arrow, it will open up your control panel completely. And again, you'll find the question/chat box towards the bottom of your control panel. Although we may not be able to respond to all the questions that you have today, we'll try to answer as many as we can in the time that we have allotted, and then we'll respond to any outstanding questions in written form at a later date. Now that I've covered the logistics of the platform, we'd like to begin with a message from Secretary Simone Marstiller.
Hello, I'm Simone Marstiller, the Secretary of the Florida Department of Juvenile Justice. Welcome to our Florida Race Equity Challenge. I'm really excited that you all have decided to join our challenge this year. I'm also excited at the way the information is going to be presented. As I'm sure everybody on the line will attest, the pandemic has required us to be rather creative in the way that we all do what we do. Normally, we would have had this conference in person, but because of the virus, we've had to do it online. But I think, quite frankly, that the way we're going to deliver the information to you in small bite-sized pieces over the course of the next several months will turn out to be even more effective, because it's going to give everybody a chance to take their time, take the information in, go back, think about it, chew on it, and come back to each next chapter, if you will, to build on the information that you learned before. Now, the program that you're about to embark on is very important. It's designed not only to give you information and background about the challenges that we have in Florida's juvenile justice system relative to racial disparities in our system. It's really also designed to give you the tools that you need to address the challenge. Florida has done an amazing job over the last 10 years relative to juvenile justice, to moving away from incarceration largely to a more preventive and early intervention model. And we've seen those policy changes work. We are now at a point in Florida's history where we have the lowest juvenile arrest rate in 44, 45 years. We have seen reductions all across the juvenile justice spectrum, from arrests to petitions to commitments, probation, etc. Unfortunately, what we haven't seen just yet is enough of a reduction, a significant reduction in the effect and the numbers of minority youth who are in the juvenile justice system. That's what this racial equity challenge is all about. And I know that individually and collectively, we can meet and beat this challenge. And so I welcome you all today. I thank you for your participation, and I look forward to seeing the incredible ideas that you all come up with to address this very important issue in the state of Florida. Good luck to you, and God bless.
Thank you so much, Secretary Marstiller, for your support in this work. I want to start this overview by establishing a uniform understanding of race equity. As you can see from the illustration on the slide, equity and equality are different things. Equality means that you provide every individual with the same remedy regardless of their starting point, which doesn't necessarily result in a similar outcome. Equity, however, means that you provide each individual with what he or she needs to allow all parties to achieve a similar result. Therefore, achieving race equity can only be realized when key stakeholders discuss, investigate, and evaluate our complex systems to understand and improve the policies, practices, and issues that contribute to disparities between races. For this reason, we are launching the Florida Race Equity Challenge to focus on improving our complex systems. As Secretary Marstiller stated, Florida has done an amazing job at general juvenile justice reform and made tremendous progress. But the disproportionality rates in our state have seen little change. National experts tell us an intentional focus on the causes of race, equity, and inclusion issues is needed to yield positive results in this area. The goal of this challenge is to bring enlightenment to participants on personal and professional levels while providing participants with strategies and tools to focus on these issues. So let's talk about how the challenge is structured. Circuit teams will participate in 3 blocks. This set of blocks is designed based on a national best practice model for this kind of work. Block 1 is called Assessing Personal Perspectives. It's important that we have a clear understanding of our views on race and how they impact our perspectives before we begin this work. We'll use this information in this block as a foundation for the work in blocks 2 and 3. Block 2 is called Beginning System Analysis. In this block, we'll begin to give you some insights on how to analyze system policies and practices to determine their impact on disparities. And block 3 is called Changing the System. In this block, we will ask teams to make some recommendations on initial modifications that can be made to increase the level of equitable outcomes that we see. Each of these blocks includes a set of webinars to challenge your thinking, challenges or action items for each circuit team to complete, and a collaborative debriefing discussion to talk about the lessons learned from the webinars and allow focused time for collaborative challenge completion. But don't fret, this challenge is strategically set over the course of several months to minimize the impact on your time. So let's take a deeper look at how the challenge elements are laid out and get a clear understanding of your time requirements. We'll start with the webinar schedule. We will be hosting 8 webinar sessions over the course of the challenge. I'm going to talk about the first 7 now, and then I'll discuss the 8th one a little later. The first thing you need to know is that all of the webinars, all of the live webinars will occur between 11:45 and 1 p.m. each time. Although not on every Wednesday, they will always occur on Wednesdays. The very first of these webinars is set to launch in just 2 weeks on June 17th. Remember, the first webinar block is called Assessing Personal Perspectives. Our guest speaker for the very first session is Mr. Adam Foss, from prosecutors' impact. Adam is a senior fellow at Harvard Law School and has been recognized by the Mandela Foundation as a Changemaker of the Year, among a host of other accolades. He'll provide us his unique perspective as a former prosecutor and facilitate a discussion on the exploration of power, privilege, and opportunity through the lens of the criminal justice system. He'll also discuss how he began to rethink his role in the system over the course of his career. Our second webinar, set to take place on July 1st, will be a focus on implicit bias. How does it work? How does it impact your decision? And strategies to minimize its impact. Block 2 focuses on beginning to analyze the system. The first webinar in this block is called Utilizing Data. In this webinar, we'll provide you an overview of state-level numbers related to disproportionality and show how to use data to begin investigating and analyzing the impacts of the current policies and practices. The second webinar is Analyzing Race, Equity, and Policy. During this webinar, our guest speaker from Maryland will provide us a deeper overview of what it looks like to review policies language to determine the level of unintended disparities those policies may cause. She'll share the tool that's used in her state as a part of the approval process to minimize the impact of disparate outcomes. Block 3 is called Changing the System. Webinars in this session are designed to show how data can be used to identify underlying issues and identify policy and practice changes that yield positive results. The first webinar is Changing Our Lens. This webinar focuses on school discipline and its impact on the juvenile justice system. Webinar 2 will be facilitated by Equality Florida. They'll discuss the impact of system practices on the LGBTQ community. And our third webinar in this session is Race Equity Work Beyond Implementation, where guests from Massachusetts will share their journey in race equity work and, most importantly, provide an understanding of the lessons learned as they work to achieve positive outcomes. Now, if you're concerned about missing any one of these webinars, don't be. Although we'd like as many people as possible to participate in the live sessions to allow for Q&A with the various presenters, we understand that things happen that may cause you to miss one. For this reason, all of the webinars will be recorded and we will make them available to challenge participants who need to watch them later to catch up on the challenge. Let's move to the challenges themselves. In each block, again, circuit teams will be assigned a challenge or an action item to complete that is linked to the block of webinars that has been presented. Again, the first block being assessing your personal perspectives, where you would have heard Adam challenge the way the system is viewed and his perspective, and heard a webinar on implicit bias. So the challenge linked to that particular block is for challenge participants to participate in a race impact conversation. Challenge participants only need to participate in this virtual 2-hour course one time, and we will provide several date and time opportunities to do so. You'll just simply choose the one that works best for your schedule. It's important to note that this will be the beginning of a conversation that will continue throughout the course of the challenge. Block 2, analyzing the system, you will have learned about how to use data to begin understanding and analyzing the system, and learned about an assessment tool designed to look at policy practice language. And so the challenge associated with that block is for circuit teams to begin looking at their circuit level data and identifying what additional information is needed to understand the why. Block 3 is all about examples of how folks have used data to understand the why and then get to a place of action. And so the challenge associated with Block 3 is for circuits to identify some initial steps for change and provide a circuit level overview of what they've decided to do. The last element in each block is your collaborative debriefing. In these circuit level meetings, challengers will discuss the webinars that have been presented, aha moments over the course of the challenge, thought-provoking questions that have been issued by the presenters, and work collectively on the action items associated with that block. The ultimate goal of this challenge is to identify some proposals for change, to gain new understandings and perspectives, and to walk through questions like, how will my circuit begin to create a more equitable system? Who do we need to assist in implementing some of these changes? Are there policy or practice modifications that are needed? Are there any obstacles or resources needed to be considered? And most importantly, how will we measure the impact of the changes that we are proposing? So while this may sound like a lot, we don't want you to worry because you are not alone. Each team is assigned a justice reform coordinator to act as a guide along the way. For everyone that registers for the challenge and indicates that they are interested in being a part of a circuit team, if you haven't already, you will receive an introductory email from your assigned justice reform coordinator soon. So what do justice reform coordinators do, or how can they help? Justice reform coordinators will assist in coordinating and scheduling your circuit collaborative teams, providing a roadmap for the challenge so you can follow your progress along the way, provide data that's needed to be discussed, share in-state and national models or perspectives on this work, and assist in identifying the best meeting platform for your team. There's a couple of other interesting things that you should know about the Race Equity Challenge. One, we will be hosting an interview series called the Race for Change. This interview series will include one-on-one interviews to gain a deeper understanding of various perspectives of people in the juvenile justice system, from national experts to youth to program providers and so on. We'll share these interviews periodically for you to listen at your own leisure. We'll also want to learn from challenge participants how the challenge is going. So stay alert, you could be asked to participate in an interview. The second is our breakthrough video competition. Towards the end of the challenge, we'll ask circuit teams to submit no longer than a 5-minute video that describes what they thought of the challenge, the best parts of this experience, lessons learned, and some insight on their plans for the future. Once all circuit videos have been submitted, they will be made available for all teams to view. And we'll ask the teams to vote on their top 3 in the following categories: the most innovative idea, the most scalable idea, the most thought-provoking breakthrough, and the most fun and creative video. There's a couple of rules to this challenge. There's only one collective vote per circuit, and you cannot vote for your own circuit in any of the categories. The winners for this video competition will be announced during the 8th and final webinar, the FREC Awards. However, they won't be the only ones acknowledged. During this session, we'll highlight breakthrough moments, share valued lessons, acknowledge other achievements, like the circuit with the highest level of participation across all live webinars, or the circuit with the greatest level of growth and collaboration across the challenge, and so much more. Now that I've gone over the basics of the challenge, I want to summarize what I've shared. So the challenge begins on June 17th with our first webinar from Mr. Adam Falls. The next one is July 1st, which will be implicit bias. And then between July 2nd and July 21st, the circuit teams will have their debriefing meetings. The second block will begin on July 22nd with our webinar on utilizing data, and then August 5th, assessing equity and policies, and the circuit debriefing meetings will occur between August 6th and September 1st. Then we'll go into block 3, changing the system, with its webinars on September 2nd, changing our lens, September 16th, Equality Florida, and September 30th, race equity work beyond implementation, with your final circuit debriefing meetings between October 1st and November 3rd. Video and proposal submissions are due November 4th. We will analyze the proposals and look at all of the other elements of the challenge in order to roll out the FERC awards in our last and final session on December 9th. We're so excited about this exciting, thought-provoking challenge and competition, and hope you'll decide to join us along the journey. Official registration for the challenge will begin today, so let's talk about some guidelines for registration that you should know. Everyone that participated in this information session will receive an email shortly inviting them to join the challenge. Each individual must register for their circuit team separately. You will only need to register one time for the entire webinar series. It's important that you indicate your circuit number on the registration. If you're unsure about your circuit number, just tell me the city in which you work and I will identify it for you. Feel free to forward the email invitation to others that you think might be interested in this challenge, because it will not only include the link for registration, but also the recorded version of this information session so that they can view it before deciding to join. I have to stop here and note that we are aware that there are individuals on the regional and state levels who would like to participate in the live webinars, and that is perfectly okay. You'll still need to complete the registration for the challenge, but simply answer no to the very last question that asks if you are joining a circuit team. It should be noted that individuals who answer no to the last question on the registration will only have access to the webinars. So who should join this challenge? Well, the challenge is open to anyone who is interested in working on race equity in the juvenile justice system. This work is most successful with a well-rounded team, although progress can be made no matter the circuit team makeup. I've had inquiries from statewide organizations who'd like to participate, so I'd like to give some guidelines for those who are thinking through which level of employees should be involved in your circuit level teams. The first is a reminder that this challenge is structured in circuit teams. That means that individuals who are responsible for multiple circuits will need to choose a circuit team that they would like to be a part of. If you're wondering about the level of position that's ideal for this challenge, I'd recommend folks at the supervisory level or higher, as this challenge, as you've seen, focuses on practice and policy changes. There is some cost associated to us per individual for running this challenge, so we cannot have everybody from statewide organizations participate, but we'd love to have representation from those organizations on each and every circuit team. So choose the 1 or 2 people that you'd like to represent your organization in each circuit. Remember, there are attorneys, school representatives, DJ representatives on these teams, so be strategic. Now that I've covered all of the basic elements of the challenge, I'm going to ask my colleague Ash Baca to join me on camera so that we can walk through the questions that you've asked in the chat.
Hello and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you once again for joining us in this information session. And thank you again for all of the questions that you have submitted. Please keep in mind, if for whatever reason we do not reach your question, we will be responding to you via email at a later time. The first question is, will we receive calendar invites for each of the webinars?
So what you will receive, as you should have today, is a email from the system confirming your registration right before, so you'll have your link, as well as your assigned justice reform coordinators will be sending out an email a day before each webinar to remind you that there is a webinar coming up.
Thank you. The next question is, will these slides from the webinars be available to the
The
audience?
recorded version of this video will be sent in your email link, so you'll have the entire information session that's been provided today.
Thank you. Can you join the circuit team later if you do not initially do so?
Yes, so you'll have to speak to your justice reform coordinator about folks that you'd like to have added to your team so that they can facilitate that process, but it is possible.
I don't know what circuit I currently work in. How would I be able to find out?
Again, if you just simply tell me the city in which you work when you fill out your registration, I'll identify it for you and link you to the right team.
In the initial registration, we already completed the section that says which circuit number we are a part of. Does that count? Do we need to register again?
Yes, everyone will have to register again. The registration that you completed was just for this information session. Again, we'll send an email out today, tomorrow morning at the very latest. I'll send it out to everyone that was registered to this information session. And in that email, you'll have the official registration link for the challenge itself.
Can you please give some examples of what community members look like?
Community members, we have school personnel, we have some community providers that are on teams, we have lots of GAL representatives, Guardian Ad Litem, that have signed up. We've got representatives from Equality Florida that have signed up. Those are some quick examples that I can think of off the top of my head.
Excellent, thank you. Is there a limit in the number of participants per circuit?
Not necessarily a limit. However, I would caution on it getting too big. We'll look at the numbers. You want to have a well-rounded team, folks that understand the system from different perspectives. But the larger your team, the harder it may be to actually make a decision. So you want to kind of be a little mindful. It's kind of hard for me to give a specific number around that.
Is it going to be the same webinar ID for each session?
Yes, so once you register for the challenge itself, you will use the same link for all of the sessions to get into the webinar, because you're only registering once, and that one link will get you into all of the webinar sessions.
Excellent. Is there any inherent conflict of interest for those of us working in a particular area?
Not that I'm aware of, not that I can think of off the top of my head.
Besides audio, do we need to have any video capability, i.e. a webcam to participate?
You don't have to have video. It is ideal, especially if all of your meetings end up being done virtually, which we're planning most of them to be. It's helpful to be able to see each other. But I can't say it's mandatory that you have it. You can definitely call in, listen in, participate in an audio fashion. But your meetings will go a lot smoother if folks can see each other and communicate in your circuit collaborative meetings.
I manage and work in 3 different circuits. Will I be a member of all 3, or should I choose one?
You will have to choose one.
Is there going to be any youth participation available?
Youth participation? Yes. So from our level, we have a group of youth called the Youth Advocacy Council. Members from the Advocacy Council will be participating in one of the Race for Change interview sessions, so we will hear from youth perspectives in that way. And circuits are definitely welcome to add youth voice to their teams where they can do that appropriately.
Excellent. And I do not know who my JRC, Justice Reform Coordinator, is. How will I find out?
No worries. As I said, they will send an email to you. So once folks are officially registered for, well, actually, you'll get your first one. If you're registered for this information session within the next week or so, the Justice Reform Coordinator assigned to your circuit will be sending out an email to you introducing themselves.
How do you know who else has signed up as a part of the team for your circuit?
That is what you will find out again through your JRC. So your JRC will again introduce themselves and they will launch the initial meeting for your circuit. So you'll get to know who's all on your team and you'll have a discussion. As I mentioned before, is there someone missing? Is there someone that's not a part of this team that we would like to see a part of this team as we move forward, so that you guys will be able to invite them to be a part of it?
Excellent. And who will be deciding the final makeup of the team?
The circuits. The circuits, along with the guidance of the Justice Reform Coordinators, will make those decisions.
Excellent. And as of now, Minnie, these are the only questions we have available at this time.
Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you guys so much for joining our information session. I really hope you guys accept the challenge and decide to join the challenge or officially register, as we are trying to enlighten again ourselves and, more importantly, create a plan for achieving more equitable outcomes across our system. So we sincerely hope you will join us on this journey. Thank you all. You have a great day.